Hey everybody, welcome to the Thrive Online Facebook Live experience. I am excited to be with you guys this morning. Hey, it is nasty weather outside and we knew this was going to be bad. We didn't want to cancel, but you know what? It is what it is. We had to do it. We had to keep everybody safe. So this morning you are tuning in, joining me live from my living room here in the Shepherd household. And hopefully you're in your living room. We're having a good time. I'm there with you. You're here with me. This is good. This is a special place for me here in this living room. If I'm ever, I like to do my prayer time, my time in the Word early in the morning. And if I don't do it in the office, I do it right here in this corner of my living room. So this is a special place for me. Right on the other side of me is my piano, which I love. And so I get to make music in here. This is just a fun place for me. So I'm excited to welcome you in and to have you here in the Shepherd living room for today's Facebook Live Thrive Church experience. So, hey, if you could, would you do something for me? In the last 2 weeks, we started doing Facebook Live as a regular thing for Thrive Church. Some of you have been joining. Some of you have been sharing. This is just the coolest thing. For those of you who've been sharing, our view counts have just been phenomenal. People are watching, people are tuning in, and 46% of the people who viewed last week viewed because you shared it. So you shared it, you put the word out there, you let people know that Thrive Church is meeting, you let people be able to watch and see what's happening. So today, as we do this, would you consider that? Would you share? Would you would you comment? Would you have some fun with this? Let's just interact, let's have a good time. Thrive, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We take Jesus seriously, but hey, this is just a fun experience for us. I also wanted to acknowledge up front, Jason has been teaching in his brand new shirts that he got from Walmart, and he loves his Walmart shirts. And so today, I got my Walmart shirt on that my wife bought for me, $4.98. Take that, Jason. I spent less than you, and I got a great shirt. So, hey, enjoy this morning. So, as we go into this series, My Big Fat Mouth, this is a series that came from Life Church, from Craig Groeschel and his church. It's just a phenomenal series talking about all of the trouble that we get ourselves into with our mouths and the things that we say that we probably should have just bit our tongue. Last week, Jason talked about complaining. Hopefully, you kind of caught yourself a little bit and you were able to help fix some of those things that we say when we complain. This week, we are talking about criticizing. And I got to tell you the truth, this morning and last night, as I'm looking at the different churches that are canceling and are they canceling, are they not doing it, I found myself criticizing like the way that they announced their closing. I'm like, what is this? Why am I even doing that? That's ridiculous. So I got to tell you, I am among the chief of all criticizers. And so this is a message for me as much as it is for you. But if you've ever been in a leadership position, if you've ever been in a place where you have a boss, if you've ever been in a place where you have children, if you have friends, you've been in a place where you've been criticized. You've been in a place where you have criticized others. And it's a dangerous slope that we get ourselves into. I remember in ministry, there was a time where I found myself, people just kept coming up to me and criticizing the way I was doing things. And I'm like, I know I'm not a perfect person, but I'm trying, I'm doing my best. And I found myself sitting around a circle with 5 or 6 other people who just started throwing all of my faults at me. And it stung, it hurt hard as they're throwing this criticism at me. And that scarred me for a little bit in ministry. But then there was also somebody who on the other side took an opportunity and he said, hey Dave, I just want to speak into you a little bit. And he told me some of the most profound, encouraging, he's like, the way that you do things, you bring so much detail into it and you carry it through all the way to the final step. And he was just speaking life into me and life and life and life. And I got to tell you, that has marked me even more because every time I do a big project, every time I'm working on something, I'm thinking about, wow, okay, am I living up to that standard that I know I'm capable of? And so it's just kind of a unique paradigm. Our words can destroy or our words can really bring hope and bring life. And so we're hoping with this series that we are people who are bringing life into situations. Now, when we talk about criticism, I want to acknowledge first and foremost what I even mean by that. When I talk about criticism, I'm not talking about the constructive feedback that we give people because we like them and we want them to be the best version of themselves that we can be. That's good. When I talk about criticism, I'm talking about the nitpicking, the unkind, the uninformed sometimes, the cruel misinformation, the criticism that goes on. And those types of things, those types of words destroy. Those words destroy people. And some of you are thinking, man, I know exactly who you're talking about, Dave. I know my boss is that person. My friend is that person. In fact, I'm going to share this video with them right now so they know they should never criticize me ever again. And please don't do that. Because this is not called their big fat mouth. This is not called your big fat mouth. This is called my big fat mouth. And we are the chief criticizer sometimes. And so this is a message for us to take to heart. This is a message for us to go, you know what, there's room for me to grow. This week, just the funniest thing, as my wife and I are talking about this, kind of getting prepped for this teaching, she came home one day and I had just built a new bench for outside at our house. Those of you who know me well know that I like to build things. I like construction. I like working with wood. And so I built this bench for our dining table outside. And I set it outside, and she came home, and I'm like, hey, come check this out. I want to show you what I made. And so I had it out there, and she looks at it, and the first thing she says to me is, it looks a little rough. I mean, that one leg is a little bit sideways still, and this, and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? I just wanted to show you what I made. And then she turns and looks at me, and she went, oh, I'm so sorry. I did it. I criticized. And it was just so funny. We had this moment between us where like, oh, yep, we do it all the time. We do that. And she's like, you need to share that story. So I did. I'm not just calling out my wife here, okay? She's the one who said, tell this story. So I did. But for me, like, I'm a person who, one of my chief love languages is biting sarcasm. I love sarcasm. It's fun. It's quick wit for me. I like to do that. I like people who can do that with me. But sometimes I get myself into all sorts of trouble with that. And so we got to be careful with our words. Now, when we criticize, sometimes we do it because we feel justified. Sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. Sometimes it just, it would be easier if those people were more like me, or if they didn't make such terrible decisions, or if they wouldn't let their kids do this, or if this, we find all of these little faults in people and we call them out. And we got to remember, our words have the power to bring life, or our words have the power to bring death. My mom, your mom, every mom in the history of the world has said this quote: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. There it is. There's the wisdom of the day. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Now, there's a wise person in the Old Testament of the Bible. It's the first half of the Bible. His name was Solomon, and he was known for just all of the wisdom that he had. He was wise beyond wise beyond wise. And in the book of Proverbs, there are a ton of pieces of wisdom just laid out, little nuggets here and there that you can pick up on. And one of them says this. This is in Proverbs 10, verse 11. And this is from the New Living Translation. It says, the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Or in the Message translation, which I think is just killer in this context, it says, the mouth of a good person is a deep, life-giving well, but the mouth of the wicked is a dark cave of abuse. Wow! Like, my goodness, do I want my mouth to be a life-giving well or a dark cave of abuse? Whoo! My goodness. So that's my challenge to myself this week. Am I a life-giving well with my words, or is it a dark cave of abuse that's coming out of me? What is in that well? What are you thinking about these people? How do you care about people? How well are you loving people? I've heard it said that what's in your well will eventually come up in your bucket. Let me say that again. What's in your well will eventually come up in your bucket. So when you look at people, when you interact with people, what is in your well? Are you thinking about all of the amazing attributes about these people? Because these are people that God has made. These are God's beloved people. Are you thinking about all of the amazing things about them? Or are you thinking about, wow, they probably shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have spent my money that way. If they could just be a little nice. I mean, all of these different things that we think about people. Are you looking at their faults? Or are you looking at their strengths? Paul writes in the book of Galatians, he's writing a letter to the church of Galatia. He says the whole law can be summed up in this one command. And whether you've followed Jesus your whole life and you know this, or you've never followed Jesus, you've probably heard this. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. And usually we stop there in that statement. But it goes on to say, not just love your neighbor as yourself. It says, But if you are always biting and devouring one another, watch out. Beware of destroying one another. Woo! Okay, so comparisons here. Are we loving our neighbor as ourselves? Are we biting and devouring each other? Because our words have the ability to either bring intimacy in our marriage or destruction to our marriage. It can bring us closer to our children, or it can put up a wall between us and our kids. It can do this in all of our relationships, in all the ways that we interact with people. And you know what? Frankly, it can keep us from sharing the goodness of God because people see in us something they don't want to be. Why would I want to follow that person who just destroys people all the time? No. Let's be people who bring life into it. The two options on the table are you can be a fault finder or a life giver. A fault finder. Now, by human nature, usually we fall into a fault finding camp, and we look for the wrong before we look for what's right. We think, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, and then we go ahead and judge. Or no offense, but, which is usually a really nice way of saying, I'm going to offend you here, so just bear with me. Or the old Southern, bless her heart. You think about those things that we do that. We criticize. Let me give you an example. A parent of a 2-year-old in a grocery store, and that 2-year-old is sitting there in the cart and just watching a screen, and you're walking, screen time for kids, that's not a good thing. You got to be careful of that. That's no good. And then you become that parent of the 2-year-old, and you learn the story and you learn the context, and all of a sudden you realize that person's about at the end of their rope, and if that kid doesn't get that phone for about 3 minutes, he may or may not live. I kid, but if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm saying. But instead of thinking about the story, instead of loving people and caring for people and thinking, how can I help, or how can I bring life into this, we think, they probably shouldn't have done it that way. But that criticism happens. Now, those of you who know any of my story, I spend some time in the entertainment industry. Sometimes I help with local productions that come through and that sort of stuff. And there's no surprise here. If you are in the entertainment industry, there are no shortage of critics. No shortage of critics. And that happens from people who are on the stage to people who help set up behind the scenes. It's not usually an uplifting environment. But there are occasional people who will come in and who will just genuinely appreciate who's there helping them. For example, I worked a show with Jay Leno, who came through, and Jay came back into our office where I was getting video stuff ready for the night. And I'll never forget this for multiple reasons. One, because you're interacting with Jay Leno, and how often does that happen? But he's wearing this denim button-down shirt, and it's unbuttoned all the way down to his navel. And he's got this Florida tan happening, and he's got the most hairy chest I've ever seen in my life. Okay, if you've seen a hairy chest, amplify it, put it in an open denim shirt, and put it right in front of your face as he's leaning down and saying, hey, thank you guys so much for getting this ready. I'm so excited to do this show tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us. You guys are incredible. And I'll remember that moment for a while. First of all, because there was a hairy chest right in front of my face, and it was Jay Leno's hairy chest right in front of my face. But more so because he didn't need to stop in and say, hey, you guys, I couldn't do this show without you. Thanks for doing what you do. But he did. He wanted to take that moment and sincerely appreciate the people who are making things possible for him, who are making the evening possible, who are making all this happen. And we have the opportunity in our daily lives to do that, to go into our environments and speak life into people. Now, here's another scripture I'll throw out there. This is from James, who wrote another letter in the New Testament. And this is James 3, 7 through 10. These words are powerful. It says this is scary. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. The tongue runs wild. It's a killer. With our tongues, we bless God our Father, and with the same tongues, we curse the very men and women he made in his image. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. My friends, this can't go on. I can just envision this. I can envision him writing this. I can envision him saying this to these people where he's like, do you not realize what you're doing? Your words, in one moment you're saying, God, I love you. I want people to know you. And in the next moment, you're just shooting out junk on people and you're destroying people. And he ends with that phrase, my friends, this can't go on. This can't go on. We can't do that. We got to love people, and we got to love them well. So the opposite of being a fault finder is to be a life giver. A life giver, not a life saver. Those are the little mints that, you can get the peppermint, you can get the wintergreen. They're delicious, but very different than a life giver. A life giver is what we're talking about. You can build life into people. This week, in the last week and a half, actually, I've witnessed this several times. One of my favorites ever is when we do the shoe project. Okay, so many of you were an active part of that, whether you contributed or you prayed or you were actually there at Harrison Hillside Elementary putting shoes on people. Oh my, like that is a powerful day to get down on your hands and knees in front of an elementary student, take off their dirty shoes that are just beat up and have holes in them, and you replace that with a brand new pair of shoes. And I watched so many people get down on their knees with these kids, and they had the opportunity to look them in the eyes and say, "You are loved. You are cared for. You are God's child." That whatever they said, I watched all sorts of different interactions happen. But to see these people look up into the eyes of a child and say, "You are loved." Holy cow, you have no idea how much impact that makes in the life of a child. You have no idea how much impact that makes when you look into a coworker's eyes, when you look into a boss's eyes, when you look into your child or you look into your spouse's eyes and you say, "You are loved. I care for you, not because of what you do, but just because of who you are." Just because of who you are. Just because. There's so much life that comes from that. And I watch these kids, and some of them, after that moment, they took their old shoes, and seriously, this happened. A girl took her shoes and pointed out every hole in the shoe that she had, her old shoe, how many holes were in it. She pointed out all of the holes in her socks. I watched another kid who said, "I don't know who this God is, but I prayed that I would have orange shoes and they would have white stripes." And none of us had seen a pair of orange shoes come through the shipment. But wouldn't you know it, we opened the box and there's a pair of orange shoes. And this kid's face just dropped. And he got to witness the miracle of God right there. Holy cow, is that not incredible? I ran around the gym with this kid who we were running, we were doing laps, we were trying to see who's the fastest. And he stopped and he went, "I feel so alive." And I lost it. Like, this is just so cute that this kid just took the opportunity to say, "I feel so alive." And I thought, yes, you are alive and you are loved and you deserve these shoes. And I'm so glad that I got to be a part of this moment with you. It was so cool. So be people whose words bring life to people. Paul, again, in another letter, he says in the book of the Ephesians, "Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Do your words benefit those who listen to them? Are they helpful? Because we have no idea how a single word of criticism can pierce a heart. We have no idea how one word of hate, one word of judgment can destroy our kids' lives. We have no idea how much that can hurt. But on the other hand, you have no idea how long one word of love will stick with somebody. You have no idea. I can remember very clearly my early days in ministry, having a mentor of mine sit down with me and tell me every one of the good things he saw in me and what he knew I could do in ministry as I grew up and as I developed as a leader because of what he saw in me. I remember that. I carry that with me everywhere I go. And I want to be a person who speaks that into those that I interact with. Encourage people, love people well. Truett Cathy, he founded the greatest company in the history of the world, Chick-fil-A. Okay, greatest company ever. If you disagree with me, you're allowed to, but I will tell you that you're wrong to your face. Okay, Chick-fil-A, greatest company ever. Truett Cathy founded it. He says this quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes of his. He says, "How do you know if someone needs encouragement? If they're breathing." How do you know if someone needs encouragement? If they're breathing. They need encouragement. Jesus, everywhere he went, he is the ultimate example for us. We love the work and ministry of Jesus because his life impacts and gives us life. Jesus walked around and people wanted him to call out all of the faults that he saw in people. He wanted People wanted him to say, look at that sinner, look at that person who's doing so much wrong in their life. And you know what he did instead? Everywhere he went, yeah, he acknowledged that's probably not what they should be doing. But instead of taking the opportunity to judge them, to criticize them, he spoke life into them. And he said, listen, these don't have to mark you. You can walk away. You can have a new life. Follow me. And you have the opportunity in your life to not be marked by criticism, to not be marked by your words of death that bring death to people, not to be marked by words that destroy people. But you have the opportunity to follow Jesus. You have the opportunity to take his example and go, yeah, you know what? I probably wouldn't be doing that right now. That's not the best idea for you. But let me show you what's out there for you. Let me show you the life that you can have. Because in Jesus, there is no condemnation. The Bible tells us that over and over again. The people who wrote the Bible, the people who interacted with Jesus face to face, the people who are there with Jesus, they will tell you this because they did tell you this. This is the words that they left behind. There's no condemnation. He's there to help you in your weaknesses. He's there to give hope. There is nothing that can separate us from the love of God. Nothing. Nothing. It goes on to say you're more than a conqueror. There's neither life nor death nor anything that can separate you from the love of God. But with our words, sometimes we separate those apart. And instead of bringing life, we hurt. And so my challenge to you this week, my challenge to me this week, is to take the opportunity to stop yourself and realize there's something more here. I may or may not agree with what's happening right in front of me, but I know that God loves this person, and I love this person, and I'm going to choose in this moment to speak life. I'm going to choose in this moment to do that, to be like Jesus, and to be that representation of Jesus to them. In this last week, I'll share this story. I take an opportunity every morning before I work. I sit down at my desk, and I do a little prayer journal. I write down the things that I want to be praying for our church. I write down all the things that are on my agenda for the day. I write down the things that I want to be praying for personally or that people ask me to pray for personally, and I just list them out. And in the last month, I've really felt like God needed to grow something in my heart. I could feel some hardening in the area of compassion. I could feel some hardening in just genuine love for people, just at its natural root. And over the last month, I've been praying hard that God would soften my heart in that area, that he would grow me in compassion. And darn it all, this week I've cried more than I have in the entire last 2 years, I think, because God has broken my heart in so many different ways. And my wife is picking on me a little bit. She's like, I have never seen you cry this much. And I'm like, listen, I probably should have prayed for money instead. Maybe that would, I'm kidding, but kind of. But in so many different ways, like for my family, my heart has been broken and has healed in many different areas in this last week. And I've been feeling different things. And I got to share with this. We got a picture from Brian Kreider this week from his wife Lisa, who works at Harrison Elementary. And they have this huge poster board in their hallway where they put up announcements, they put up different things. And they changed it this week of pictures of us giving away shoes at the Shoe Project. And it says the words, "We're so loved." And there's this little girl who's standing next to it and just smiling. And there's pictures of shoes and there's pictures of us showing love to these kids. And I melted because that 1 4-hour chunk of kindness that we were able to show to these kids, to let them know they are loved, made such an impact. Such an impact. And you'll see us show that picture in the next week. I want to show it right now, but I don't have a big screen behind me today. And you're going to hear from Andrea. Hopefully we'll get her next week. Our hope was to have her there today, the principal of Hillside Elementary, but because of the weather, obviously we're all in our own living rooms. But we'll have her in. She's going to share some of the stories of what God has done in their school because of your love, because of your generosity. And so just know that it's an encouragement to the people who are able to witness that. But as I've grown this week in compassion, as I've grown in the past month of praying for this, as I've prayed for God to break my heart for what breaks his, literally that's my prayer. God, break my heart for the things that break yours. I don't want to waste a single breath bringing somebody down. I want to spend my words, I want to spend my time, I want to spend my hours speaking life into people and letting them know that God is for them, that Thrive Church is for them, that Jesus came for them. And so this is my challenge for us this week. My challenge is pick one person per day that you're going to speak life into. Maybe it's somebody you know that you just have not encouraged ever. Maybe it's somebody you know who needs encouragement. Maybe it's somebody who you've never spoken to, but you know that they are the best at what they do and they inspire you. Maybe, I don't know what it is, but find that one person each day and speak encouragement into them. And what I know will happen is that when you do that, when you take that one person each day and you speak into them and you encourage them and you breathe life into them, the next day it's going to become a little more natural. And the next day it's going to become a little more natural. And then you're going to find yourself doing it every hour, every 10 minutes. And then eventually you're going to become like our friend Michael Barrett, who just speaks encouragement out the wazoo because that's what he does. Michael, if you're watching, you are an inspiration in this because there's so much life that can be spoken into people. And it becomes more natural if you make it a part of your daily routine. I'm going to speak life into them. I'm going to show them Jesus with my words today. So that's my challenge. I'm going to leave you with that. Spend some time today with your family. Stay safe in this weather. It's nasty out. There's a big old sheet of ice in front of my house, so we didn't want to push the limits. But be a part of that. Be active, engaged in that. I'm also going to ask you, Thrive Church, would you consider today, normally we have an opportunity that we share in an offering together where we get to give back to God because he has blessed us with so much. Today we didn't have the opportunity to do that together. So would you take an opportunity, go to thrivechurchmi.com/give, and you can help be a part of what's happening in Central Michigan that way, or you can text the number 84321 and be a part of that this week. We'll just kind of shift our giving to be online giving so we can continue this ministry, so we can continue reaching out to Central Michigan and loving people well with what we do. So thanks for being part of that. Let me pray for you guys, and then I'll turn you loose to enjoy the time with your family today. God, we love you. And Jesus, we know that you came to breathe life into us, and I pray that we are a people who breathe life into the people around us, that we show you well, that we model you well with our words and with our actions. And so I pray this week in the interactions that we have, that we would love people so well with our words, that we would breathe encouragement with every breath that we have, that we wouldn't waste our time bringing somebody down because it doesn't help anything, but we would bring them up. Lord, we pray that you would change our hearts, that you would soften our hearts to see in people what you see in them, that we would know the way that you love them. We would know the way that you have created them and made them the way that they are. And so, God, we thank you for this morning, and I pray that you would bless each family who's at home in their living rooms today, who's watching from wherever they're watching. Lord, would you bless them and protect them this weekend. We love you, and we ask your blessing on the week ahead of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Take care, Thrive Church. I love you guys. We will see you next week for week 3 of my big fat mouth talking about lying. So, big week ahead. Take care. We'll see you soon.